Andrew Jackson's presidency represented a seismic shift in American politics. A hero of the War of 1812 and a symbol of the self-made frontiersman, Jackson stormed into Washington as the champion of the common man. The age of Jackson was defined by a dramatic expansion of democracy. During the 1820s, many states dropped the requirement that voters must own property, creating a vast new electorate of farmers and laborers. Jackson was that president. His victory in the election of 1828 was a landslide, a popular repudiation of the corrupt bargain that had put John Quincy Adams in office 4 years earlier. Jackson's inauguration in 1829 was a scene of democratic chaos. A massive crowd of his supporters descended on the White House for the reception, turning it into a mob that broke china and climbed on furniture. Jackson fundamentally redefined the presidency, making it an instrument of the people's will. If you want to see how Old Hickory shook the foundations of American government, hit like and subscribe.
Upon taking office, Jackson instituted reform through the spoils system, the practice of systematically firing political opponents and replacing them with his own supporters. Jackson defended this rotation in office as a democratic reform that prevented the emergence of an aristocratic civil service and made government more responsive to the will of the people. Distrustful of his official cabinet, Jackson came to rely on a group of informal, trusted advisors, longtime friends and newspaper editors who met with him in private. His opponents derisively nicknamed this group the Kitchen Cabinet. One of the central goals of Jackson's presidency was the removal of the southeastern Native American nations from their ancestral lands. In 1830, he signed the Indian Removal Act, which authorized him to negotiate treaties for land exchange west of the Mississippi River. The Cherokee Nation resisted through legal channels. In the landmark case of Worcester v. Georgia, 1832, the Supreme Court, under Chief Justice John Marshall, ruled in favor of the Cherokee, declaring that the laws of Georgia could have no force in their territory. Jackson, however, openly defied the Supreme Court's decision. He is famously reported to have said, "John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it." Jackson's refusal to protect the Cherokee sealed their fate. This policy tragically culminated in the Trail of Tears in 1838, where the U.S. Army forced over 16,000 Cherokee to march over 1,200 miles, leading to the estimated deaths of 4,000 people. Andrew Jackson held a deep-seated animosity toward the Second Bank of the United States, BUS, viewing it as a monster institution, a corrupt monopoly run by a wealthy, unaccountable elite. The conflict, known as the Bank War, came to a head in 1832 when the bank's president, Nicholas Biddle, applied for an early renewal of the bank's charter, forcing Jackson's hand. Congress passed the Recharter Bill, and Jackson responded with a powerful, historic veto. He framed the bank war as a struggle between the common people and a corrupt financial elite. Jackson staked his re-election on the issue and won a resounding victory, which he interpreted as a clear mandate from the people to destroy the bank. Following his re-election, Jackson ordered the withdrawal of all federal funds from the BUS, redirecting them into a number of state banks that his opponents derided as pet banks. Deprived of federal funds, the Second Bank of the United States withered and eventually collapsed, a defining victory for Jackson, but a move that is cited as contributing to the Panic of 1837. The most serious constitutional crisis of Jackson's presidency came from his own vice president, John C. Calhoun of South Carolina. Sparked by the high tariffs of 1828 and 1832, South Carolina invoked the doctrine of nullification, passing an ordinance of nullification that declared the federal tariffs null, void, and unenforceable within the state, threatening to secede if the government tried to collect duties by force. Though a states' rights advocate, Jackson was a fierce nationalist who viewed nullification as treason. At a celebratory dinner,
he stared directly at Calhoun and offered a famous toast. "Our federal union, it must be preserved." Jackson threatened to lead an army into South Carolina and personally hang the nullifiers. He dispatched warships to Charleston Harbor and asked Congress to pass a force bill, authorizing the use of the military to enforce federal law. Faced with Jackson's credible threat of force, South Carolina hesitated. Henry Clay, the great compromiser, brokered a solution. A new compromise tariff would gradually lower the duties, and South Carolina backed down, rescinding the ordinance of nullification. Jackson was a man of volcanic temper, known for his duels. In 1806, he fought Charles Dickinson over an insult to his wife. Jackson allowed Dickinson to shoot first, took the bullet near his heart, and then calmly killed his opponent. In 1835, Jackson became the first president to be the target of an assassination attempt. When the attacker's 2 pistols misfired at point-blank range, the enraged 67-year-old Jackson charged and began beating the man furiously with his cane. Jackson fundamentally redefined the presidency. He was the first to govern as if he were the direct representative of the popular will, wielding his power on behalf of the people against the other branches of government. His era celebrated the common man, while simultaneously executing the brutal policy of Indian removal, embodying the deepest and most troubling contradiction of 19th century America. Jackson preserved the Union through the Nullification Crisis and ushered in an age of greater democracy. But his populist assertiveness created a model of the strong executive that departed radically from the founder's vision. The forces of expansion, democracy, and sectional identity unleashed in this era set the stage for the ultimate national trial. Our next step is to review the full series. Question for the comments: which of Jackson's 2 great battles, the Bank War or the Nullification Crisis, do you think had the greater impact on the future of the Union? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.